Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. I am excited. I have got LeAnn Luedeker from Luedeker Homes. They are located in Belleville, Texas, which I believe is somewhere south of me. We're here in Dallas. I think it's around San Antonio. Is that right, LeAnn?
A little further east than San Antonio. I'm closer to Houston and Austin, so
okay.
I'm in between.
All right. Well, hey, you're in the right state, Texas, baby. So, all right. But really excited to have you, LeAnn. You know, we got to spend some time together. I guess was that like a month ago or so at Remodelers Summit. It was just really awesome getting to hear your story, getting to learn about how you've built your business. And so I appreciate you coming on and, welcome to Builder Stories.
Thanks. I'm very glad to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us kind of a little bit of background, how did you get into construction? What led you to create, Luedeker Homes? What do you guys do?
Yes. Okay. So we have a little bit of a different story because my husband actually started it alongside me, but I was still working full time so that he could follow his passion. And so I kind of took a backseat to the company for almost 6 or 7 years and then decided to jump on board with him full time and try to help as much as I possibly could to try to make the ship as right as possible because we both bring different qualities to the table, but we're basically a small boutique, more architect-driven type of custom home builder located in a very small town, which most people have no idea where it is. I am about 2 hours east of San Antonio, but I'm much closer to Houston. So people are kind of familiar with Katy, the Houston area. I'm west of Houston, about an hour. So then I go the other direction, I can hit Austin in about 2 hours. So from you, I would be 4. So I guess you'd say kind of central Texas, but it's so small town that people don't always grasp. In my peer group, everyone's from big cities and they really have no concept of what the small town was till they came to visit me last April. So we mainly do remodels and custom homes, but there would be more on the larger scale. So I don't have a lot of smaller projects. My projects would probably range from the $200,000 mark to the multi-million-dollar mark. So much more larger scale, full scale renovations or ground up construction.
That's awesome. And so I guess when did you get active in the business and what's your role look like, or how has it kind of transitioned over time?
So we started the company in 2006. So we've been around for about in our 19th year right now. So in the beginning, I would just do the bookkeeping on the side. I'm an accountant by trade. I'm a CPA, but I've never practiced public accounting. I have a corporate and nonprofit background, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to people. But I also did a little bit of banking and then decided to really try to help on the business side. One thing I realized with construction was that there was a communication issue. There's a lot of breakdowns in communication along the way. And when you're trying to be one person running the whole show and keep the clients happy, the trades happy, we do not self-perform. So everything we do is trade-based. It just got to be too much for one person to handle. So we figured that we would just do it together. And I jumped feet first in. I did everything from, I've swept floors. I have cleaned toilets for people to move in. Anything and everything, cutting every single check. I've had my hand in every part of the business and kind of had to learn the hard way a little bit along the way. And then pretty much realized really quickly what I didn't want to do in the business and had to figure out ways to kind of work together and make it better. So kind of a crazy story is back in right when I left my banking job and decided it was either we're going to shut this down or we're going to do it together and make it work, because my husband's so talented at space and relationships of how things work together and project management, all those details, but I knew he needed help and it didn't make sense to hire someone else. I thought we can either do it together or you can go to a job somewhere else. And that was our decision. And the day I left my job, we were in a serious accident that night. Actually, the next day, that put my son in a wheelchair for the summer. He was 6 at the time. My husband was life flighted. Thankfully, everybody's okay now. It was a freak accident. A tree fell on us at dinner. And from that point forward, I just knew like this is where we were supposed to be and that it was going to work out no matter what. In fact, our first house that we picked up, our first new construction house, was somebody walking in the door to talk to him while he was still laying in bed recovering. And that client, they sold their house and we're going to gut and remodel a house for them starting next month. So that's kind of how full circle things have come in the last 10 years since I've been really more heavily involved with the business.
Wow. That's quite the story there, LeAnn. I'd be lying if I said that like it isn't a very common thing that I see though when, again, you got, somebody who's really, really great at their trade, great at, something kind of, working with their hands, but they're not always, as business savvy and don't really kind of desire to put their full attention on the business side. They want to keep doing what they're really passionate about and what they're great at. And so, a lot of times I see the business getting neglected, and it's so important that you can manage both sides of the house, the business side and the operation. So it sounds like you really came in and, helped kind of bring a lot of that sort of structure and formal focus on the business side.
Well, I wish I would be lying if I told you that I did. So the other side of the story is that I got so focused on, we are very people driven, almost to a fault. And by trade, I'm a perfectionist and a people pleaser. And so I got really into the business and I got so deep into making sure every client was happy and everybody got what they wanted that I wasn't paying attention to the numbers, and I'm a numbers person. So it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago that we really had to sit down and say, okay, now we really have to focus on the business, because we spent so much time trying to build our reputation and making sure in a small town that it was sustainable and that we had the work coming in, but we weren't focusing on the numbers like we should have been, which makes no sense since I'm an accountant. So that was when we joined Remodelers Advantage and decided to get into a peer group. And that's when we really started seeing the change and making a big difference and focusing on the numbers. And now it's almost complete opposite, where my husband is always like, do you have these numbers? Are you ready to look at it? And I'm like, let me catch up. Things have grown so much, I can't keep up with everything. And so we're almost reversing roles a little bit. But yeah, I really should have been better at the numbers, and I wasn't. And that was a huge mistake we made early on.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, again, a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And, when again, you're just trying to survive, trying to figure out how we can get that next job, or how do we get out of this job? Like, I see a lot of times, again, people don't take the time to understand sort of all of the pieces and how it comes together, and I think that's where, groups like Remodelers Advantage are awesome, because you can join this community of people who have already been there. They have gone through the same thing.
Yep.
And they can start sort of shedding light on the things that you may not realize you need to focus on. And, I think that's awesome. I mean, how did you all find Remodelers Advantage? How'd you know that you needed to do something different?
Well, we knew when we started looking at the numbers that this was just not adding up. I mean, it was kind of ironic that we received an award with our university where we went to the greatest university ever. I know it wasn't Texas, it was Texas A&M. I know that's your other favorite school, but whenever we got into an Aggie 100 list, which is wonderful. It's great to say you're one of the fastest growing companies. And we made that list 3 times over this course of time. But I looked at it and I was like, it doesn't matter what your growth is on the revenue side if you don't have any money in the bank at the end of the day to take care of everything else. And so that's when we really started thinking that we needed some help outside of ourselves. And I reached out to a friend of mine, another Aggie that I knew through a peer group in Houston that was a buying group. And that's a different dynamic, because you're not there to really get in deep with everyone on their numbers and their details. You're really there for everyone to save money by having a better purchasing power, bargaining power. And I just reached out to him and said, hey, are y'all part of any peer groups? Or, I know there's other great ones. I'm sure one day we'll love to try Builder 20, but he told me about Remodelers Advantage and I decided to go for it. And I'm so thankful. It has been a huge game changer for us.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, coming from, Belleville, very small town, how do you think it's been different for you all when you think about, marketing and trying to, get more deals coming through? Like, is it very much relational, word of mouth? I mean, do you still have kind of your traditional, website? Do you run ads? Like, how are you, how are people finding you?
So we decided when we first opened our doors, our most important, most like the biggest value that we hold tight to was being part of our community. And it was really important to us. I remember we moved here almost 20 years ago now. And at about when we were starting the business, I remember buying tickets to go to the local hospital's 80th birthday party. And it was a special dinner, and no one there was young. Like, we're not young anymore, but back then we were younger. And everyone was like, "What are you doing here?" And my husband's family goes back generations from this area. So it was a lot of fun, had really close friends. We all got involved, and we just started really plugging into the nonprofit community, mainly because that was our heart. It wasn't to try to necessarily drum up business, but we were just trying to get to know people, and that was an easy outlet for me. And then over time, we just kept being involved. We have an office on our little town square. And as we've grown, there's 4 sides of it. We've now our 3rd side of the square because we keep trying to find a bigger space. But the buildings are so cool. They're so old. And it just took time of building those relationships. But really, besides the website, we need to work on next year, updating those types of things and getting our pictures updated. Really, the important thing to us that started being a game changer were the relationships with the realtors. We have a lot of people, with architects. So a lot of people moving out to our area. They're not necessarily living here full time. They want a weekend place. We're really close to Round Top, Texas, which is super popular right now. The large antique show is going on. And so there's a lot of ranches out there that people will buy, and they need to remodel them. So that's kind of where they want to build their forever home out there. So that's kind of our bread and butter. And we got started just starting small with the smaller remodels. It's just grown over time. And once we got in with 1 or 2 realtors, they just happened to have seen a project and they started calling. And they make sure that we have really good referrals. It's not just, "Hey, this person wants you to come switch out the front door at their house." It is a full, "Hey, this is a large scale project. Can you come take a look?" And from there, it's just kind of exploded the last few years. But it's all been from those relationships. And then high-end architects out of Houston and Austin that have clients that are there in the city, but they want a place out here. And so those referrals are starting to, come to fruition. We worked with some really amazing, talented people. And that's really where most of our business comes from now.
And is there some sort of like financial relationship or referrals or what,
No,
how do you build the relationship?
it's not. It's all been just strictly organic. I just really try to take care of those relationships for the next, I think, and maybe it's next month. I'm sponsoring a bus with a friend of mine owns a title company, and their project developer, their business developer, her and I are working together to sponsor a bus, and we're taking the local realtors down to a shopping day in Houston. So we're starting to do things like that where we're just working together to show appreciation to a lot of those people. But it's not necessarily like a kickback community or a fee. It's more or less just we refer people to them. We get people that come in here and they might buy a property, but they want to buy more land around that property. And so we refer them to the realtor. So we try to make it advantageous, but really at the end of the day, it's a team that we just all enjoy working together. So, and we have architects in Houston that we refer people to as well. If someone comes to us first, we try to give them a list of names and try to start going that direction. But it's really not necessarily like a fee-based type of program.
Sure. No, that's awesome. I mean, I think always, whenever you can find the win-win for everyone,
Yes.
it's always a great, foundation, I think, to build a strong relationship. So you both are able to kind of help each other out. I think that's great. And they obviously trust you with their clients. And so I think that goes a long way too, to be able to keep getting those referrals from them.
Well, I think a big part of it for us is it's like being in that small area. If you're in Houston, and we had a family coming out, we had a freeze a couple of years ago. I know it affects Dallas much more than it affects us down here, but people aren't used to that. And we had a well on an old property that it was an older well, and a part busted on it, and it was Christmas Eve. Well, the family was going to come celebrate Christmas in Belleville, and we knew that. And so my husband was out there covering up the well, making sure he got the water back on for them because he did not want their Christmas to be ruined. And I think it's those little things over time. Like, we weren't building for them at that time. We had finished the project the year before, remodeling the existing structure. Well, now this spring, they want to come and build another house. So it's really taking care of those things, and those people talking to their friends. They're all friends with architects too. It's all those interrelationships and taking care of stuff where we can convince the architects coming out of town, they don't want to send them to someone that's not going to take care of their client. They don't want a bad referral.
Yeah.
So we just really try to take care of everyone along the way and keep it more of a long-term relationship. It's not a transaction to us. That's kind of always been our foundation. This is not transactional. We're building a relationship that's going to be sustainable, and we want to be with you over the long haul.
It's awesome. And as you see, I mean, one of your early clients has, sold their house and they're coming right back to you again. So it's testament to those long-term relationships. I'm curious, what is your kind of your full sort of sales process look like, if you will? When someone gets referred to you, kind of what does that look like to get them all the way into construction?
Well, used to, all of that was just you called us and we showed up and we started visiting and we came up with a plea or referral and we started working on it. And we learned pretty quickly that does not always work. That number one, we needed help. It was too much for the two of us to do. So we've grown our team. Part of being part of Remodelers Advantage that's helped me is learning through that whole defining that process, like the pre-construction process and how critical that is. And so now we have actually on staff, she's a true architect, but she's part-time working. She has 4 young children, so we only get her so many hours a day. So we've kind of, instead of drawing in-house, because that is very time-intensive and we're more focused on architect-driven projects, we have her helping do project development. So we try to make sure we have all of our estimates in place. We try to sign a pre-construction agreement with everyone, and I think that that's really helped us try to weed out people just coming in to try to price shop. And we're definitely not going to be the cheapest, but we're bringing in a team to try to help get the project done well and the experience to be a great experience for all parties. So if you're price shopping, you're probably not going to come to us for a pre-construction agreement. So we try to establish that relationship up front and really work with people to define their scope, even if it's with an architect or without, or if they just already had the plans and came on board later. We try to start with the pre-construction process, and most of the time that will lead to it turning into a construction contract. But it's not an obligation. I mean, the whole point is to go through that process and make sure that we're all on the right team together, because if it's not the right fit, it's not going to be good for either one of us. So most of the time it works out for the best, but we try to get as much done up front as we possibly can.
Sure. Are there like certain kind of red flags, if you will, that when you go into this kind of these initial meetings that you're looking for to try to make sure it's a good fit, on your end?
Yes. One of the biggest things for me is someone we learned a long time ago, there was someone that called for, at that time would have been one of our biggest projects we'd ever done. And they were so litigious and they were so just like, well, we're going to do this and you have to use this certain contract and not our contract. And it got so litigious, the talk, that we realized this is not the client for us, because they were always looking for the upper hand. And in our opinion, we've always talked about construction as a triangle. So it has to be fair to us, it has to be fair to our clients, and it also has to be fair to our subcontractors. We will never treat a subcontractor like they are the help or that they work for us. They work with us. So it has to be equal between those three parties for it to be a fair project. And if we feel like someone's coming in and they are trying to get the best, I don't know, like a leg up, like there's just certain people who have that persona about them where they have to win, then no one's going to win in the project. If they are willing to look at it as a team approach, then we immediately shut it down, because it's just not going to be worth it for anybody. And you'll end up losing money in the end because they're always going to try to get ahead of you. And I say that at the same time, I've had plenty of clients that are lawyers and plenty of engineering clients. So I have no trouble with any of them. It would just happen to be at that time. If someone comes in acting that way, we know that it's not going to work for either party.
It's so crazy how sometimes the homeowners just kind of come out with it like, oh, well, we got into all these legal issues with our last contractor. And it's like, do you think that's like winning me over? Like, am I like excited to come here? Like, I mean, I would run for the hills, like I've never understood why they want to sort of come out with that, but that's a very good red flag to turn and just walk away.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because but that's not who we are. And there's someone for everybody. And
Yeah.
we are not in a high pressure sales position. Our goal is to make sure that we're going to work together well, because we want our ultimate goal is for the product to speak for itself. But we're in a small town, so we're going to run into you at the grocery store. We're going to see you at the Friday night football game. And I don't want to be dodging someone because there was some transactional issue. That's just not how it works. And I also have a goal that if we're going to sign a contract, we're not going to have to refer to the contract. So
Nice.
to me, it's a part of the process that's critical, and I understand it's necessary part of business. But if we have to keep referring back to the contract, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
Because we should be able to work it out, and that's what we always try to do with our clients.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess when you're looking at projects, I mean, you said you do both new builds and remodels. Obviously they're, kind of higher end remodels, but like, what do you see the biggest differences? And like, is there one project that you prefer over the other?
Well, we are so sensitive to remodels because that's where we started. And so I believe that they are a lot harder than new construction. And mainly it's the relationship management part. On a new construction home, unless it's some of our projects we've had where someone's living on the property and we're building, because a lot of our properties on acreage, right? It's not like in a neighborhood in town. So if they're living in a current, like a guest house or a smaller structure, and they're going to build a larger home, they're there all the time. But if you're really remodeling where people are living in their homes, that is much more time intensive. You have to make sure they are fully aware of all the communication. And we've struggled with that the last year when we got back into some of those. And it was hard because for me, it's never enough communication. And so we just jumped on board with JobTread. And in fact, next week, we've always sent like a weekly update email where we've told everyone, hey, this is what to expect from us this week. Well, when it comes to new construction, that's fine because, that's great. I want to know what's happening, feel good about it. But when it comes to remodeling and you're living in their house, it has to be daily. Like they have that absolute right to know what to expect that's going to be, who's coming in and out of their home. So most of our remodels, we prefer not for someone to be living there. If we're going to do a full gut, they need to be out. But we have a couple of projects right now that we love the families. It's a great project as far as just improving their home to be better for their family. We're friends. We wanted to do it. And so, it's probably never going to be enough communication for me. But starting on November 1st, we're going to have everyone email through JobTread, through the messaging aspect of it. So there'll be no more weekly updates from information at Luedeker Homes. It'll be an email straight through JobTread. Super excited about that feature. That way they don't have to log into a system. They get their weekly update, but it's going to be straight from, instead of me having someone on staff do it for everybody, every project manager is responsible for seeing that weekly update to their client. So I'm excited over time to integrate the clients more into the JobTread experience.
That's awesome. It was at a Remodeler Summit. Jared Thayer is another one of our clients. He did a little talk about how I guess they bought the property right across the street from his house. And they ended up kind of remodeling it, and then they actually set it up as a rental, but then they can use it for their clients when they need them to move out.
Yes,
they have
brilliant.
A place that they can basically, hey, here, we'll give you a great deal, but come on out, let's just get you out of the way. We don't want to have you living in the middle of a dust storm.
It's too much. I would love one in a perfect world. I don't believe we're quite there yet to be able to do it, but I wish I had my own division where I had a really good skilled carpenter that could help run that and do some of the aspects and really be on site all the time. It's hard right now with our business model to try to make both work. We're kind of in two different worlds, but we'll always still be part of remodeling. Like I can't imagine not doing it. I think it's tons of fun, actually. I mean, the house I'm in right now is my home, and it was built in the 40s, and we just remodeled it a year ago and took it down to the studs. So I think there's I can tell you every crooked wall and everything that's wrong with it, but I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, one thing I've learned about construction that's been really hard with my personality type is that there's no such thing as perfection.
Yep.
There's not one perfect house. There's not one perfect project. There's always going to be challenges, but if you strive for excellence, and that's one of our values is excellence, then you'll keep getting better and you'll keep improving, and you change the narrative. Instead of everyone expecting it to be absolutely perfect, you just know that it's the best you can do, because there's I calculated the other day, 150 to 200 homes are affected by one of our projects. that many people have their hands in it. And a lot of those people are craftsmen. And so it's not all made by a machine. It's never going to be perfect, but it can be the best you can possibly make it. And that's what we strive to do.
Yeah. I think a lot of times too, people kind of get sort of feel character, and, it's not a cookie cutter template. It's, every little imperfection can sort of be its own, nice little unique character trait. So you've kind of talked a little bit about, the importance of treating your trade partners right, making them feel like they're part of the team. Can you talk a little bit more about, how have you built this kind of the culture, within your company, and how do you involve, your trade partners and sort of, make them feel like they're really part of the team, and understand the value that you put on them? Because, to say that it's just as important that your trades are going to be treated, appropriately as yourself. I mean, that says a lot. And I think that's a really, really important thing that, I'd love to have you shed some light on.
Well, ironically, our business was started basically because my husband was working. We graduated college and I went and did corporate stuff, and he really was always fascinated with construction, even though he doesn't have a degree in construction. It was more on the agricultural side. And so he started working commercial construction, then got into a home building business. Well, the problem was that the owners weren't taking care of paying the subs. And he had to be the guy on Fridays that they would not pay the people, and he'd have to answer for it. And he was getting so frustrated. And one Friday he went to the office to talk to him about it, and the owner was running down the back staircase to avoid him. Now, these were people who came from trust funds. So they had money, and what they were doing was just running it. And when they were kind of done with the play with this business, well, they would close it and start another company in a different name. Like, they knew how to get around it. And it was so backwards that he just one day said, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to work for people like this. And if they can build it, or if they can run a company and not do it well or treat people right, then I can do it and treat people right. So from the beginning, we always paid our subs every Friday. I mean, I take care of them. They know that they're going to send me a check and I'm going to pay them. If that means I don't get paid, I make sure they get paid. Because to me, it's like having employees, but I say they work with us and not for us. The same with my employees. They work with us. So I'm going to make sure that they are all taken care of and that they are paid. And if you take care of paying your subs timely, that's 80% of the battle, because they're tired. They don't want to have to fight with people to pay them. If they're doing a good job, they want to be compensated. Just like a regular employee, if you go to work and you work for someone, you're getting a W-2. If they don't pay you on payday, that's not going to sit well, and you're not going to want to keep working for them. So It started with the money, and then it's just about respect. I mean, we try to make sure we communicate with them timely, work with them on their schedules. A lot of them are getting better now about scheduling. In the past, because we are a small town, there's a culture here that's like, well, it's the country, we're going to be slow. And I would be begging people to show up. I was like, I know you're really busy, because everyone that's good is busy. I would show up on Fridays with Gatorades for everybody, or I would show up with cookies. I've gone and bought sandwiches for everyone. Like, I'm sorry you're having to work late. But over time, now that it's such a great area, there's more people coming in that are not quite that old culture where, we'll get to it, we get to it. And so it's getting easier to schedule. But I just think if you treat people like humans, and if you treat them with respect, over time, you build that relationship. And again, if you just take care of paying them, much happier to come back to work. And so we just try to work together as much as we can.
Obviously, keeping the funds flowing is certainly probably the most
critical.
Important there. But I totally agree with you. I mean, like, it's the little things that can be so meaningful to people. I mean, I'm a big believer in, feed your people. Like, I mean, for me, I mean, and all of you, you've seen the, we'll work for food signs. I mean, like, it's so true. Like, if you really want to get some help from someone, offer to buy them a lunch or a dinner, or buy them a drink or coffee. Like, it's such a small thing, but that gesture just means so much to people. And when they're at the end of the day, needing to go an extra hour but have no energy, like, for you to show up with some sandwiches, I mean, like, that can make all the difference in how that next hour goes for them. And so it just shows that, like, you really care. And I think when you treat your people right, that is what creates such a strong, loyal, workforce for you. And, it's night and day, when the guy next to you is, just all they care about is getting the work done, and they don't really care about them, if all else is equal, or even if, maybe you're going to make a little bit less, but that you're going to be valued and appreciated, they're going to come show up at your job because of that.
Yeah, and I think it's when people feel like they're always being squeezed. Like,
Yeah.
we don't want to feel like we're being squeezed by the client. So why would we treat our trade partners the same way? Like, if we're always going to them and saying, I don't have enough in this job for this, or I don't have this, that's not fair to anyone. So we just try to be fair. If there's and especially in custom, there's so many changes along the way, and you'll be really proud of us. We were working on a change order today, going through job tread, because we're getting used to the system. We're, recently new from trading over from another software company. And so we're learning the ropes, but, not taking care of them just as much as we want to get paid for changes. We've got to be fair to them as well. And so really just trying to be respectful. And the same goes for our clients. I mean, I think it goes back to taking care of them. If they're, we've had people have major life transitions and terrible things happen within their families. And even just the process of construction is stressful. There is going to be a breaking point for every project. I don't care who you are, how great it is. Something's going to happen and someone's going to be stressed out. And I, thank goodness, have the most wonderful florist on our town square. And I just go over there and I'm like, okay, can you please deliver these today? I need to make sure I send this over to this family. And I love to send flowers at random times. I'm not so much that it's Christmas, you're going to get a card and a generic gift. I'm all about, hey, this is happening in their life. I'm going to acknowledge this. Or we've hit a roadblock. Let's send this plant or these flowers, or here's a gift card to take your family to dinner. I know you're tired of being out of your kitchen. Whatever it is, I think if you just look for the little opportunities, then you'll build that relationship with people, because that's what matters to them ultimately. It's the experience. It's not that, oh, they sent me a Christmas card like all the 100 other ones I have in my from other people that I don't ever talk to. Like, try to make it personal, and that's what's important to us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So can you tell us a little bit about, obviously to pay out every Friday, that means that you must have a payment schedule where you're regularly collecting. So how do you manage the kind of the cash flow and really specifically the collections? Like, what's that payment schedule look like for you?
Well, that's something I've worked on over time. And really, again, back to when I say that my Remodelers Advantage group has been a game changer for me, I would encourage any builder listening to this to check out Remodelers Advantage or any type of peer group where you can find people to see how they're doing it, because you're not going to talk to your competitor down the street. I totally recognize that. But a lot of them helped us get set up where we were doing phase payments instead of I used to just invoice every couple of weeks or once a month. And a lot of my clients now don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be bothered every 2 weeks with having to write a check. And so what we do now is do it in phases. It might be 7 phases, however the project scope works out. And we try to draw up front. And then at the end, I hold back. I don't expect someone to pay me when we're not finished with something, but we really try to stay on top of it. So we have the cash flow available to take care of the subs, to pay them timely. It works out well. I have some cost plus jobs where they want to pay every 2 weeks, and I'm totally fine with that. So I've just tried to build up over time a cash balance to be able to take care of my people. But some of the jobs can get to be really large dollars. So we have to really stay on top of the cash. And the other part that came out of my peer group visit when they came to Texas back in April was that I needed to hire someone to help me. So I finally brought someone in-house, and like I said, I was used to cutting every single check, so it's a big change for me, but I should have done it a long time ago. And so she's really helping me, and she loves job tread. She just geeks out on it all the time. She's so excited. She's so motivated. She loves the numbers. I love the people. So together, I think we're going to make a great team over time. We just keep improving that process. But you have to stay on top of the cash flow, because 5 years ago, we were not. And so we had to dig deep, and we had to figure it out and how to get a loan to keep the doors open. And I'm not apologetic about that. I think that was part of our story, and you just get stronger. But we refused to we weren't going to let it beat us, because we knew better. We knew we could build a great product and that we could figure it out. It took time, and we should have paid more attention to the numbers earlier on. We just didn't.
Yeah, it's always interesting where, people think that, once they get, larger scale and they have more revenue coming in, that like the cash flow will just be easier for some reason, just because the numbers are larger. And it's like, no, like you actually are taking on more risk if you're not managing the cash flow because, one big mistake or one big payout that you have to make before you've collected, I mean, that one time, that now the larger it gets has the potential to really put you, on your knees and having to go and borrow. And it's like, I think it's so important that people understand. I mean, like the number one, challenge for construction business is managing your cash flow. Just because
hard.
you have $100,000 or whatever it is in the bank today doesn't mean that that's your money. Like tomorrow, you may have to pay it all out.
Yeah, and that's something I think it's interesting how people view that too. When people talk about, I won't get a deposit from someone, like, I'm not in the position, the way we're structured, we don't take large deposits up front. We don't really have retainers. Now, we'll do a pre-construction agreement, and it's small, very small compared to what the project cost would be. But if I take a payment from someone, I put it in a liability account, and it actually goes into a separate bank account until I have actually incurred the expense and the revenue. So if I'm going to do a draw over that week, I will transfer the money in to cover that draw because that's not my money. And I think that's where a lot of construction companies go wrong is they say, well, I have all this cash in the bank. Well, that's not your cash. If you shut the doors today, what do you owe to somebody else? And that's why the WIP report's really important. That's exactly why we joined JobTread, like why we moved over, is because I saw someone in my peer group looking at their computer at their live WIP report. And I can do all this stuff because I'm an accountant. So I have all these side spreadsheets. But guess what? I missed entering in a payment to a painter one Friday that was desperate for a check. And I wrote a check out. Well, then the next month when I went to reconcile, I figured out pretty quickly I overpaid him. Well, I should have caught that. I'm an accountant. But if I would have had that in JobTread, I would have missed that because I would have seen it tracking but live. And instead, I was depending on extra spreadsheets. So all those things are critical because it takes, and also it's not always that you make a mistake on the cash flow side. You could have an issue at a job where we take care of those issues. I mean, I had a client call from 10 years ago and they had a small leak and they had a little bit of damage to sheetrock. Well, I just said, you know what? I've got a sheetrock in the area. I'm going to go take care of that for you. They weren't even telling me about it because they expected me to do anything. But I'm going to go take care of it because that's my advertising dollars. I'm going to take care of all my projects, make sure we're doing well, that they're performing well. So those little things over time, that's cash too. So you've got to start building up a warranty account. Like all those little accounts make a big difference. But I think too often construction people get way, way too in the weeds and they get excited about cash that does not belong to them. Yeah. And that is not a way to run a business. So as soon as we started taking those cash payments the last year or two with phase draws, I moved them all into separate accounts so that they did not mix with my operating account until it was time to do a draw. So instead of contacting the client for the draw, I just transferred the money and then it took care of everything. And then it's fine.
Yeah, that's great. For those who are listening that don't know what the WIP report, the work in progress report, can you explain that to them and why they may want to look into that?
Yeah, it's really critical for your business to understand, number one, if I'm going to sell a project, and let's just say it's a $100,000 project, but my costs are, say, they're $70,000 or they're $90,000, whatever the cost may be, even if it's $1 and my costs are 99 cents. You've got to know it's not just about your margin, but then you've got to understand what's it going to cost to really finish that job, because you may have estimated it, but things change and market prices change. And is it fixed costs? Is it cost plus? Whatever it is, you still have to be tracking what the cost of that job is at that point in time, because you need to see the trends and figure out, are we going to be behind? Do we have slippage, which means that we're losing money? We're not going to have that margin at the end. We're going to lose that money because we're the wrong door, or whatever the case may be. You're going to have some slippage along the way, but then you may also gain something because maybe you underestimated an area, but you have to try to see how that balances. And if you don't stay on top of that, I think a lot of times people just say, well, all I have to do is open up QuickBooks and I can see, well, this is my profit and loss in the job. And that really tells you nothing. Where is that job going to end? And so a big part for me on the WIP report is, what is the actual cost to complete? Like, what does it really look like? And so over time, as you integrate that into your system and you can start seeing all those columns and watching it, it'll tell you all kinds of things, like how much is in backlog, like how much revenue do we have coming in to cover our payroll for the next 3 to 6 months. I mean, really keeping track of it, and you can totally geek out on that stuff. And again, even I'm an accountant, I'm not even the one that's geeking out on it. My husband is. He's like, I need to know what my overhead costs are. I need to know this so that we're properly estimating. Because you can go upside down really quickly as you're growing because you need more staff. I mean, how are you going to pay for these people? How are you going to pay for their benefits? You know, we just started offering health insurance. Like, that's important. It's important to my family. So why would I not want to take care of my employees? A retirement plan. Like, if I'm going to retain good people, then I need to take care of them. But all those things have to be paid for. So if I don't know my cost and what a job really costs, I really can't guess at it. Even if I have an estimate, you've got to track it the whole way through. And that's what the WIP report does, at least for me. I'm sure everybody sees it from a different perspective, but that's why I like it. So
no, that's awesome. It's got to be exciting to have, you know, your husband kind of go from not really understanding the numbers at all to now getting excited about the numbers. That's a good sign of now once you understand it, like you sort of start to figure out the key drivers, and you know it's like being able to kind of get everybody, you know, united and speaking the same language on the same page. Like, it helps you kind of drive the business forward together with that common understanding.
Well, the funny thing is that over time, he's so good at the construction side of things. And I always wanted to, like, we just need to get it out of your brain. I never looked at myself and realized I knew all the numbers, but no one on my team, they didn't know the numbers. They may know the estimate, but they weren't seeing all these spreadsheets that I had. Those were my spreadsheets. And that's another reason why we jumped on board with JobTread, because we knew we've got to empower our employees. And that came out of my peer group meeting too. They were just shocked that my employees weren't seeing all these reports. Now, I was trying to keep up with them because I was wearing too many hats. But at the end of the day, I really had to step back and say, I wanted to get it out of my husband, like all that construction knowledge. And we want to, you know, help our team learn what he knows. But I have to do the same thing. And it's not fair to anyone for it all to be in my head. And he didn't even have any idea of what was going on. So we really had to figure that out together and what would make the most sense so that we were all on the same page. Because it's easy to kind of jump in each other's lanes, but then also hold information, not intentionally, but you're just busy. And so now we're all trying to get on the same page and speak the same language. And your employees get pretty excited about it. I mean, they were all geeking out today about figuring out something in the system and how we're going to use it for this or that. And it's fun to see people just it's back to being empowered, and they feel valued because they know they're part of the process. It's not just about how is Luedeker Homes making money. It's how are we making the best value for our clients, but also providing opportunity for our employees and for everybody along the way. Again, it goes back to being fair for everybody.
No, I love that. I mean, I see all the time where people, like, they don't want to share, you know, the profits, and they don't want to, you know, they don't want people to know what their costs are, what the price is. And it's like, I don't know, like, I mean, I'm a big believer in, like, just be an open book, be transparent. And when everybody on your team has the same information, you can work so much better together to try to accomplish your goals than if you only give some people certain information and you share this with other people. Like, again, if you want people to work in silos, how can the greater, you know, good and the greater team work together? And I love it. It sounds like you've sort of gone through that, where you had it kind of all siloed out and sort of hidden, but then you've seen the transformation of just being able to share everything with everyone, you know. And I think, you know, a lot of times that people say, well, I don't want them to see how much money we're making, because then they're going to come ask me for more money. And it's like, well, you know, look, at the end of the day, like, the numbers are the numbers. And, you know, as long as you're fairly, you know, compensating people, and you're not, you know, I mean, if you're way under market and way underpaying someone, then, I mean, they should be asking for more money regardless. But, like, I think opening that up, like, when you really can, you know, frame it like you have into, you know, what is going to deliver the most value for our customer, and how can we get these jobs done on time and on budget, you know, that is what is going to make, you know, the everybody, you know, the company, the subs, and the client, that's how everybody wins, is by everyone working together and being on the same page. So I love how you've put that focus in there now.
Well, they also care. I mean, we had a problem where a subcontractor did an integrated sink incorrectly. Well, that's not okay. Like, I'm not going to try to push down a client to accept that. We're going to make it right. And someone on my team felt terrible about it. So it's okay. Like, we're going to make it right. That's, you know, at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. So if it means I lose money, I lose money. But I'm going to make it right. And if everyone, the good news is that they care. And so everyone on the team cares, and they're trying to make sure, because they know the cost, they're working on it to make sure that they get the most value that they can, not just for the homeowner, but to be fair to us too. Like, they don't want to make the mistakes. They want to make sure we're getting things right. And we're not just being loosey-goosey with stuff. We're trying really hard to be, to get the best value we can for our clients at the best quality, and we're not going to cut the corners. We're going to make it right. So
sure. And so what does your full team look like today?
Today we have 10, and it started with Luke and I. That was it. And so the funny thing, you met my sister-in-law, Laura, and so we're kind of like a sideshow when we go to these conferences because no one believes that I work with not only my husband, but my sister-in-law. Today's her 5th anniversary, so we love having her. She used to be a teacher years ago and was a stay-at-home mom, and when they moved to our small town, she just said, "Hey, do you need some help?" And we desperately needed help. So we brought her on board, and she is basically our chief operating officer. And so she takes care of, but she's done everything. And so she really is an interface with our clients a lot too, and the architects, and everybody loves her. She's incredibly talented. And I think, I have a lot of part-time moms on staff too that are uber talented with design, with numbers, with architecture, but they can't work a full-time job. And so with their family life, where the state of it is right now. And so with little kids, I've just brought on a really good team of people that are able to give me half days or whatever we can do. We try to make it as efficient as we can. We've learned some hard lessons. Working from home doesn't work for us very well. And I talked to you about that when we met. Something I loved on your podcast is a culture killer. 100% agree. So we've tried to work through some of those challenges along the way, but we've got a great team, and we're up to 10 now. So we have superintendents. My husband kind of runs production side, and I stay on the accounting side. So
it's awesome. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed getting to spend time with you and Laura and everyone there. It's very clear that you guys are a very tight knit group, and you care. I love the passion for what you're doing, and just it's just so apparent that you guys are working together, and you're just excited to be part of this team that you have built. And I think that's just always it's probably the number one thing that I look for when bringing on team members is, like, do they have that passion? Do they care? Like, do they genuinely want to be here, or are they just trying to collect a paycheck? And I think regardless if she's your sister-in-law, it's finding people that care. I think is so important, and you can tell though it also uplifts the culture for everybody. When you find people that are in the right role at the right company, doing the things that they are just naturally driven and excited to do. That's how you really unlock someone's potential, is put them in that right role.
Well, and I've gone through the gamut of I've done everything the wrong way to get to this point too. When our kids were little, we fought all the time it was always about the business. It was never about our home life. Was fine. We had a great young family, loved our kids, but we would fight mainly about cash flow with the business. And we were just in the trenches trying to create this business and make it work. And I learned pretty quickly that my kids, because we were also working from home, we didn't have an office at that point. I learned that they weren't seeing that work can bring joy. They saw work as a negative. And I had to really change that narrative with my family, because that wasn't fair to them. We weren't setting an example of what work could be. And so we really had to have a mindset change. And it wasn't my passion to get into construction at all. But I had to learn all these great things I get to do for people now. So I found a passion in it, because I love the business now. I love my family. I love getting to work all together with our team. But the cool thing is, instead of thinking about, I have to do this, we use the language of, I get to do this. So it's not that I have to go meet this sub. I get to meet that sub in order to make that kitchen better, or to improve this home so this family gets a better end result. So if you change, because it's a hard business, and there's a lot of crooked people. There's a lot of negativity. There's always an issue with something, because there's so many people involved in it. But if you approach it from a get to instead of a have to, I think it can really change your attitude and your focus. And if you come in with a better attitude, and I've had plenty of days where I didn't have a good attitude, so I've really worked on this. But if you just try to change your mindset, it's amazing what your team can accomplish when they're more motivated, instead of just feeling like, oh, it's just another day that I've got to do something that something's not going to go well. Just
Yeah.
try to make it as fun as you possibly can.
No, I love that. It's such a great way to look at every single day, everything that you get to do. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're all very fortunate to live here, to have these great jobs, to be able to build companies, to be able to add value to other people's lives. Like, I mean, life could be so much harder, but it's all about how you wake up, and it's your own reality that you create in between your own ears. Like, I think having that right mindset is such a great, great thing to have. I'm curious, since you brought it up, I mean, and it's always interesting to me. So, husband and wife, like, what's the work-life balance? How do you separate work and family time? Like, how do you kind of manage that?
Well, it's hard because it becomes so much of your whole. It's everything we do. Like, you try to keep business separate from personal, but it's so personal. It's what it's also not our identity. I think that's number one. You have to get back to the root of, like, it's when times are hard and when things aren't going well, our identity is in our faith. And so if we start there and we start building from that point, and you put that lens on as to the bigger picture, it makes things a little bit easier. But this has not been on our own. I mean, we've worked with a therapist before to try to figure out, as our kids are now, our daughter's in college, our son's a senior in high school, what are we going to do next? Because all we've done is we part of doing this company was so that we would have the flexibility to make every baseball game, to make every volleyball game. I mean, I've left a Remodelers Advantage meeting that was in Austin to get to a state playoff game down the street and came back for the meeting the next morning. I mean, we aren't going to miss those critical times in their lives. I'm so glad that to this day we haven't. But at the same time, it didn't make it easy, and there was tons of challenges. And we were given advice earlier on to, like, leave work at work. Like, 6 o'clock, you walk in the door, you don't talk about it anymore. Well, that's not always reality. Things happen. But I've tried really hard, and it's not easy, but we've really tried hard to just, when we get home, and if we can find some time on the weekends, we just try not to talk about work all the time. It's easier for him because he can compartmentalize and he has hobbies. I don't really have hobbies. My hobbies were everything the kids did. And so I'm really having to work through finding that new kind of what's next chapter, because you just get so busy with your family, you don't think about all those things along the way.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely relate. It's even with my wife not working, at Job Tread, it's I think for me it's very hard for me to just leave work at work, because I'm constantly thinking about it, and I think we're sort of going through that same sort of challenge. We actually hired a marriage coach that we've been working with over the last 3 months, and it's been really helpful for us to see how we let everything else sort of become our highest priorities, and we always sort of push down our own relationship. And we've been working very actively to, like, make sure that we're dedicating time to just to go get breakfast or to go do something fun together, where we can kind of have a little bit of time away from the kids. They're great, we love them. Have some time away from work for me, which is very hard, and can be really hard to sort of turn my brain off. But I do think it's very important that people invest in their family and their relationships with each other, and make sure that just like you said, I mean, like, it work and business, it's not everything. It's not your life. It's not the whole picture here. Like, you can have some separation from that, and I think it's sort of just figuring out that balance. And I know early on, for any entrepreneur, those first couple of years, like, they are a total grind. Your back is against the wall. You are just fighting to survive.
Yes.
But I do think, just so everyone knows, like, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, once you can get the business up off the ground, once you can start to build a team around you, like, it does get easier to be able to sort of take a little bit of time. Because, like, if you don't, you're going to end up getting burned out. And I've seen so many people just run themselves into the ground, and it's like, that doesn't do anybody any good either. Like, when you're recharged and you're fresh, that's what helps you to go and deliver great work.
I think along the way, I would always focus so much on our clients, and I would just get so anxious, like, if there's a leak or something's happening. I mean, I would just get so upset. And Luke, it helps that we have different personalities, that he's more of a calm, steady, and he kind of would remind me sometimes, like, we are not neurosurgeons. So what we're doing most of the time is, we're not going into cardio surgery for someone's family. Like, there's normally a fix for it. We're going to address it. We're going to take care of it. We have to try not to be so emotional about it because I'm the emotional one. But then over time, I learned, wait a minute, I get to do this with him every day. So I understand his world. So that's pretty cool too, to think of it that way. Instead of us just both coming home, we're tired or burned out, whatever's happening, we both understand fully because we're experiencing it. But at the same time, I don't really get to see him very much at work because he's busy out in the field. So people are always like, how do you work with him all day long? I'm like, I really don't. So I wish I saw him more. But another piece of advice would also be that I wish that I would have done better earlier on, since I was so client focused. A lot of times he would just say, I wish you would just be on my team. So instead of me being always against him and always thinking of everything we're doing wrong, like just to take a step back and say, how can we fix this together instead of it becoming an issue? Because it's really easy to point fingers and to just get frustrated and to get heated about things. And ultimately, that's not healthy for anybody. So we worked hard through it. So
that's again, great advice for both, for both work and personal. I think, I can say my wife has said the same exact thing to me. So I totally get it. Pointing fingers and trying to assess the situation every time doesn't always result in the outcome that you want. It's about how can we do better together. So I'm curious. So, you've obviously had a lot of success, especially over the last few years. But how, when you think about the business and you think about what you all are doing, I mean, how do you define success? How do you measure what you're doing and the impact you're making, and what are the things that really motivate you the most?
Oh, it's like makes me like, speaking about being emotional, you got me like all worked up. It's not my bank account. It's just not. And I think that that's something that's really hard for people to understand, that like, I know that we're running a business and people are always talking about margins and profit and all these things. And that's just not what it is to me. And it's not what it is to Luke. And I think that that's partly how we've been able to sustain our marriage through this, is that even when the financials are up and down and things are hard, we always knew that we had an opportunity to get to work with people. And some of our, best friends from college just moved here after being out of the military, and watching their family. Like, we were trying so hard to find a house in town that fit their family, and we couldn't find anything that was right. So we were able to find one that we could connect. And Luke just walked in and said, we can do this and do this. And they had great vision, and the house had already been remodeled, but it was just a really bad job. So, and I don't even know who did it, but it just needed to be, and it was just the finishes weren't right for this family. And so we needed to fix that, and being able to connect the spaces and add on and make rooms for boys out of this box that it was really hard to visualize, but they all live in, and it's perfect now. And it's not perfect in the means that there's not something wrong, like physically with it, as far as like every little paint is like perfectly done. It's that it's perfect for their family, and getting to see them live in that home and live out their life for their next chapter means more to me than any paycheck I'd ever receive. So that's what's important to us. And like, we're remodeling a house right now for a lady who lost her husband, so she needs to sell her ranch. Just because how do you keep up with that on your own? And it's a later phase of life for her. Well, getting to see her move into a new house that's going to be perfect for her in this new phase of life that nobody wanted that to happen to her, but we get to walk through that with her. There's joy in that. And there's so much goodness that, to me, that's success. Like, maybe if it was a perfect punch walk, that would really be success for me because I'm so OCD. But ultimately, that's not what it's about either. It's getting to see those families live out their best life and getting to be part of that story. I mean, what an honor. Like, that's what's important to me. So, and maybe one day to have enough money to retire. I don't know, because it's really exhausting too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's just such great insight that you've shared there. And, it's I think it can often be hard for people to sort of see the forest from the trees when you're in the thick of it and you're fighting cash flow and like trying to just figure out how you're going to live and living paycheck to paycheck. But like, I think at the end of the day, like when you really take a hard look at like, what does happiness look like and what does success look like you need to understand like, what are your drivers? Like, what are you personally passionate about? If you got to decide what you could do every single day and it, financials and money and all of that was put aside, like, what would you spend your time doing? And when you can answer that, like, I love what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing for others. Like, I am passionate about this work. Like, that is how you know that, like, you are in a great spot. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, I can tell you, and I mean, I've sold my first business. I mean, I've had money, I've not had money. Like, having money, it isn't going to necessarily like make things easier or make you happier.
No.
I mean, it is easier to have money versus not have money. But like, at the end of the day, like, after I sold my first company, like, I became very depressed. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was too young to retire. I felt like so much pressure, and like I was in a bad state for a while. And like, I can tell you now though, that like, just like what I heard you say, and how you love what you do, and all the spaces that you can create, and like how you're helping others. Like, you know, for me too, it's that same thing. And what I have found is like, when you can get yourself into that position where you are genuinely excited every single day to come into work and do what you love to do, like, that helps you do the best possible job that you can, that motivates those around you. And at the end of the day, when you deliver great work time and time again, the money will come, you know. But like, when you sit there and it's like when you're trying to find that perfect partner in life, and like, you know, you're trying so hard, like it can oftentimes be that much harder to find that person. But it's the times when you're not looking for it that they end up coming along, and then you just know they're the one. Like, you know, but like, it's the same thing. If all you care about and all you focus on is the money, and you're chasing the money, like, your happiness and everything that you do is clouded by this like very narrow, you know, small thing that you're focused on, that like, at the end of the day, isn't going to make you happy just because you get more money. But like, you don't love life, and you don't love what you're doing, and you don't like the people you're working for, and you don't want to do these jobs, like, then you're not going to be happy, and it's not going to be worth it, you know. And I see the energy and the excitement that you have, and it's about like enjoying the journey that you're on. And I hope everyone can take that away from this, is like, learn to create your own environment, your own, you know, your own utopia of happiness, and do what you love to do. And when you do great work, and you stand by your honor and your reputation, and just treat your people, treat your clients well, the financial success will come with it. And
just stay the course. You can't just give up, and you can't just say, you know, well, this didn't work, but what can I learn from it? How can I be better? And I mean, trust me, this has not been without tears of sorrow too. I mean, this is a really hard business, but if you really step back and try to just keep staying the course and doing the work, and make it the best you can do, then that you're right. The leads, the business, all those things will come. But I think we get so, I've got to hit this certain margin, or I have to hit this certain thing. It's like, okay, step back. You know, what can you do to keep incrementally getting better, and to celebrate those successes? I mean, we tell our peer group all the time, we're like, we're not going to be the ones with the highest gross profit and all those things. Like, but that's also not what's driving us. So you have to create the business that works for you. It doesn't, you can learn from everybody, and you can help everybody and all those things, but do what fits your culture, your family, create that business that makes the most sense for you. And then you'll be able to sleep at night. Because I'm not going to go charge someone a price just because you should charge a price. I'm going to make sure I'm adding value and bringing to the table the things that justify that price. Like, those are things to us that make, we just want to sleep. We want to sleep at night and have a business of integrity. So.
All right. So last question, just to wrap up here. I mean, if you had to give one piece of advice, or, you know, what is, or one thing that you wish you would have known when you started off that you now know, like, what would that be?
Well, I would say probably the biggest advice would be to really understand your numbers. Back to, I'm going to say the numbers don't matter. The numbers, they do matter. And so as much as I can tell you it's all about relationships, don't sacrifice your family and yourself. It's okay to take care of everybody else, but make sure you're being fair to yourself as well. And really try to understand how the business works, instead of just like the number side of the business and how it can provide for you, instead of just worrying about doing the business and making sure you're doing the best job you can. You still need to make sure you're doing the best job you can, but really look at the numbers earlier on. We should have looked at the numbers earlier on, and we didn't have the right tools in place. We should have been meeting about it weekly, talking about it, but instead we just got so busy doing our thing that we were just trying to stay alive. And we should have taken the time to work on our business and not just in our business. And I'm sure everybody would say that. I mean, that's generic advice, but that's probably the biggest thing for us that would have helped us earlier along the way.
Yeah. And again, I think there's definitely a difference between, knowing your numbers, focusing on building a successful, profitable business and making sure that you're managing your jobs, within budget, because at the end of the day, like, that is very important to the client and how you're going to make sure that you're delivering that, that ROI and that value for them. And so, I think it's definitely don't want it to come across that we're saying, no, don't worry about the money, because I mean, it is important that, you manage these jobs appropriately. Otherwise, you're going to get not only yourself, but like everybody involved in a lot more trouble kind of when you don't manage the finances. But, again, I think it's all about, just embracing that, the construction journey that we're all on, and in every job. You never know what you're going to get thrown at you. You never know when you open that wall what you're going to find. And
That's
it's
right.
just like, you got to just take it all in perspective and make sure that, you don't let any one thing, overwhelm you or get you down or put you in a funk. Like, just, again, whatever this job throws at you, create a list, break it down into small pieces, assign it out, figure out what needs to be done, and just keep charging forward. And like you said, LeAnn, like, you can't give up. You got to just keep going, and you got to keep reinventing yourself, reinventing your processes, finding better ways. Join, groups like Remodelers Advantage and the peer networks. And again, like, you don't have to be alone. You don't have to go at this alone. Like, you don't have to come up with all the right answers either. Like, there is such a larger community of people out there who have been there, who have done that, who would love to be helpful to you. And just like how you help all of your peers now in that group, like, it's such a great, way to really just kind of maximize this journey of life that we're all on. And, I'm just so glad that you and I got to meet. I really enjoyed our time together at, Remodeler Summit, learning more about your story, your business. Obviously I can't wait to see, where you all continue to take it. You and Luke have done a great job building not only an awesome company, but you're doing a great job for your employees, for your trade partners, for your clients. And it's an honor to be able to work with you, to be able to see your success. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I hope that others have been able to take away some value from this too. But just, thank you again for everything that you've done and for coming on today to share this all.
Hey, thanks for having me. I loved meeting your team. We were so energized. We came back to the office and told everybody we made the right decision. We're so excited about Job Tread. We consider you to be part of our Luedeker Homes team and family, and we're going to be at the conference in January, so can't wait to be there and see everyone. And by then, I'm going to be learning more about the system and keeping my knowledge base growing and learning. So I'm really excited and just appreciate the opportunity to partner with a company that has so much energy and that is willing to try to invest, and not you invest in your employees, but you invest in your clients too. And so I feel like we have a similar mindset when it comes to that. And that's why I just really enjoyed meeting you guys at the summit and can't wait for the next time.
Awesome. Feeling is very much likewise, very mutual. Can't wait to see you all here in Dallas in January for Job Tread Connect. And just look forward to seeing your continued success, LeAnn. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.